Mel Gibson's film, The Passion of the Christ, sought to portray the brutal suffering of the crucifixion with unflinching honesty, drawing inspiration from historical accounts, ancient documents, and the Gospels themselves. His goal was to bring the viewer as close to the reality of those final hours as possible. Yet, what if even Gibson's graphic depiction barely scratched the surface of what truly transpired? There are accounts, revealed to the visions of St. Bridget of Sweden, that suggest a dimension of Christ's agony far more intense, more devastating than perhaps any film could capture. Her revelations speak not just of external wounds, but of internal torments and physical details that push the boundaries of human comprehension. We invite you to journey with us into these lesser-known accounts, exploring the spiritual and physical depths of Christ's martyrdom as described by St. Bridget, from the tensions of the Last Supper to the horrors of the midnight trials and the road to Calvary. Be forewarned, the details shared may be deeply unsettling. Prepare yourself, because understanding this perspective might forever change how you view the sacrifice of Christ. The suffering, according to St. Bridget, didn't begin solely in the Garden of Gethsemane, as many assume. It commenced earlier, during the sacred intimacy of the Last Supper. As Jesus broke bread with his apostles, she described him already experiencing a profound pain that transcended the physical. He knew Judas was a moment away from betrayal. He foresaw Peter's denial and the disciples' fearful flight. Beyond this immediate circle, St. Bridget conveyed that the weight of all humanity pressed upon him. Every sin, every offense, every rejection of love committed throughout history was felt in that moment. Imagine the burden. Facing imminent torture while simultaneously carrying the moral and spiritual anguish of millennia, knowing many would disregard the very sacrifice he was about to make. As a small thank you for joining us today, we offer a moment of shared blessing. Comment with the word faith, if you're open to receiving a special closing thought dedicated to all who participate. And please tap like if you appreciate these moments. When Jesus retreated to the Mount of Olives to pray, the agony intensified to an almost unimaginable degree. St. Bridget explains that he didn't just foresee the physical horrors awaiting him. He keenly felt the sting of indifference, the pain of knowing his sacrifice would be scorned or ignored by countless souls. It was in this state of extreme duress, she revealed, that Satan himself appeared, attempting to dissuade him, whispering that his suffering would be futile, that he couldn't possibly win the hearts of those determined to resist grace. This wasn't merely psychological torment. The pressure was so immense, Bridget asserted, that his body reacted with hematidrosis, sweating blood. Medical science confirms this rare phenomenon can occur under extreme stress, causing capillaries near sweat glands to rupture. It underscores that his anguish wasn't just emotional. It physically manifested, affecting every fiber of his being. Be sure to stay with us, as around chapter, for we will explore St. Bridget's harrowing account of scourging, revealing details that suggest a level of brutality far exceeding what is commonly depicted. Even in works like Gibson's film, how could a human body endure such calculated cruelty? The agony described by St. Bridget deepens as Judas arrives in the garden to enact his betrayal. It wasn't just the act of treachery by a friend, but the manner of it, a kiss, a sign of affection twisted into a signal for arrest that intensified the anguish Jesus already felt. At this point, Bridget described Jesus enduring immense internal suffering, a prelude to the physical violence unleashed upon him. The soldiers seized him without mercy, binding his hands with rough cords that, according to Bridget's vision, cut into his wrists. He was shoved, dragged, and thrown to the ground, subjected to immediate mockery and derision under cover of night. This wasn't a formal arrest. It was the beginning of a cascade of humiliation designed to break his spirit even before the trials began. One particularly cruel detail from St. Bridget's account involves the soldiers blindfolding Jesus. Imagine the added terror and pain of being struck, slapped, and mocked without being able to see where the blows were coming from. This detail, often glossed over, highlights a calculated cruelty aimed at maximizing disorientation and suffering. The subsequent proceedings were far from swift or orderly. Bridget describes periods of waiting during the informal questionings by religious authorities. During these delays, the guards, left unsupervised, reportedly amused themselves by continuing their abuse, striking his already aching back, kicking him, spitting on him, ridiculing him as a liar and false prophet. The blood he had sweat in the garden mingled now with the bruises and welts from these initial assaults, accumulating marks of torment even before the sentence was passed. It's a harrowing picture, one that underscores the depth of malice Jesus faced from the very moment of his arrest. Mel Gibson's film depicted brutality, but St. Bridget's vision suggests an almost relentless tide of smaller, persistent cruelties layered upon the larger acts of violence. This wasn't just about legal process. It was about personal degradation. How did he endure this? Bridget consistently points to his unwavering focus on his redemptive mission, the immense love driving him to accept even this profound humiliation for the sake of humanity. This perspective invites us to look beyond the physical pain, however horrific, and contemplate the spiritual strength required to face such hatred with divine purpose. The night was long, filled with mockery and blows, but it was only the precursor to the state-sanctioned violence that awaited him. What further horrors did St. Bridget witness in the events leading to the scourging post? Following the demeaning interrogations and intermittent abuse throughout the night, the ordeal intensified dramatically with the official sentence of flagellation. While Mel Gibson's film portrayed this scourging with harrowing realism, St. Bridget's vision suggests a level of calculated cruelty that might be almost unbearable to witness. Many imagine simple whipping, but Bridget described instruments designed for maximum damage. Whips constructed with leather thongs embedded with sharp pieces of metal and bone fragments. These weren't intended merely to inflict pain, but to tear flesh. She recounted how these implements would catch in the skin and rip away tissue as they were pulled back, leaving deep lacerations, exposing muscle, and in some horrific instances, grating against bone itself. This was not a swift punishment. It was prolonged, systematic torture. The soldiers, devoid of pity, continued relentlessly, striking even when Jesus collapsed, his legs unable to support him. If he attempted to shield himself, Bridget saw them respond with kicks and stomps to keep him exposed and vulnerable. Imagine the sheer physical shock, the waves of agony washing over him with each blow. There are moments in her account where Jesus lacked the strength even to remain upright, yet the soldiers would forcibly lift him only to continue the assault. This description emphasizes not just pain, but utter helplessness and the deliberate infliction of suffering far beyond a standard legal punishment. It presents a scene of terrifying brutality. Contemplating such horror naturally leads to the question, how could anyone endure this? St. Bridget's revelations consistently point back to the driving force, Jesus' infinite love and his clear understanding of his redemptive purpose. She conveys that even amidst this torment, he maintained clarity about his mission, accepting each lash as part of the sacrifice undertaken for humanity. This perspective shifts the focus from the sheer brutality, which is undeniable, to the incredible strength of love required to withstand it willingly. It challenges us to consider the depth of commitment behind the passion. While films like Gibson's attempt to convey the physical cost, Bridget's visions push us to confront an even more profound level of suffering offered, she insists, out of boundless love. But even after the scourging ceased, the torment was far from over. What new form of agony and humiliation did the soldiers devise next, according to St. Bridget's account? Once the brutal scourging paused, leaving Jesus a mass of torn flesh and exposed muscle, the soldiers initiated another phase of humiliation, described by St. Bridget with chilling specificity: the crowning with thorns. This wasn't the symbolic, almost delicate wreath sometimes depicted in art. According to Bridget's visions, the soldiers gathered sharp, long thorn branches, forcing them onto Jesus' head. To ensure maximum pain and penetration, they didn't just place it. They reportedly used sticks or pieces of wood to hammer the thorny crown down, driving the spikes deep into his scalp and skull. Imagine the searing agony as dozens of sharp points pierced skin and grated against bone. Blood streamed down his face, obscuring his vision, mingling with the sweat and grime from the previous ordeals. Even in this state, the mockery intensified. St. Bridget described the soldiers contemptuously adjusting the crown, pressing on the thorns to inflict further pain. They spat on him, struck his already wounded face, and bowed in mock reverence, crying out, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Each act was designed not only to cause physical torment, but also to degrade and ridicule his claim to kingship. It was a spectacle of cruelty, turning symbols of royalty into instruments of torture. Observing this through Bridget's account prompts a recurring question: How did he endure? How, amid such unimaginable physical and emotional violation, did he maintain his resolve? The answer, consistently reflected in her visions, lies in his unwavering focus on the purpose behind the pain. The mission of redemption fueled by an infinite, unconditional love for every soul, even those inflicting the suffering. If the depth of this love, enduring such mockery and agony for our sake, touches your heart, feel free to share men in the comment below. This clarity of purpose, this divine love operating within human fragility, is perhaps the most profound aspect of St. Bridget's revelations. It reframes the passion not merely as an endurance test, but as a conscious act of sacrifice undertaken with full knowledge and acceptance. Mel Gibson's film powerfully conveyed the physical breaking, but Bridget's insights emphasize the internal fortitude, the spiritual strength that prevented Jesus from succumbing to despair or rage. It's a testament to a love that transcends human understanding, a love willing to absorb the absolute worst of human cruelty to offer the hope of salvation. The scourging had ravaged his body, the thorns pierced his head, but the journey of suffering was still far from over. What awaited him on the path to Calvary, carrying the instrument of his own execution? After the agonizing crowning with thorns, the next stage of the ordeal began. The journey to Calvary, bearing the instrument of execution. St. Bridget's visions depict this not merely as a difficult walk, but as a torturous procession under the weight of the heavy wooden cross. Placed upon his shoulders, already torn and bleeding profusely from the scourging, the rough would ground into raw wounds, causing excruciating pain with every step. The path was long, and his weakened body faltered frequently under the immense burden. Bridget described multiple falls, moments where Jesus collapsed onto the rough ground. In these moments of utter vulnerability, there was no respite or mercy from the guards. According to Bridget's account, rather than offering assistance, they reacted with renewed cruelty, kicking him, dragging him up by his hair, forcing him to rise and continue the agonizing trek. It's a depiction of relentless brutality, emphasizing complete lack of human compassion shown by his captors. Mel Gibson's film captured the falls and the struggle, but Bridget's visions add layers of persistent, malicious abuse during these moments of collapse. The surrounding crowd was largely no better. Bridget described cacophony of shouts, insults, and morbid curiosity from onlookers, with few showing genuine empathy. It was a public spectacle of suffering, met mostly with hostility or indifference. Amidst this chaos and cruelty, St. Bridget highlights a poignant, silent encounter. The moment Jesus' eyes meet those of his mother Mary, who stood watching along the path. Bridget conveys an almost mystical connection, suggesting Mary felt her son's agony as if it were her own, a shared suffering transcending words. Powerless to intervene physically, Mary offered profound support, her unwavering presence, her steadfast love a silent anchor in a sea of pain. This image of the grieving but resolute mother provides a powerful counterpoint to the surrounding cruelty, embodying love and faith persisting even in the darkest hour. It's a moment rich with emotional depth, the kind that resonates deeply with the human experience of love and loss, likely contemplated by Gibson and countless artists attempting to capture the passion's essence. The journey was arduous, marked by falls and abuse, but the destination, Golgotha, promised even greater horrors. What final cruelties awaited him there, according to St. Bridget's visions of the crucifixion itself? Upon reaching Golgotha, the place of the skull, the final act of torture commenced. According to St. Bridget's revelations, another layer of cruelty was inflicted even before the nailing. The soldiers roughly stripped Jesus of his remaining garments. Because his blood had dried and clotted, the cloth adhered to the countless wounds covering his body. Pulling the garments off thus meant tearing away skin and reopening injuries, causing immense, fresh pain over his already ravaged form. He was then violently stretched out upon the wooden beams of the cross. The nailing itself, as described by Bridget, was a procedure marked by brutal efficiency rather than any semblance of care. Large, rough nails were driven through his hands and feet, not with surgical precision, but with forceful hammer blows. She emphasizes a tearing of nerves and tendons, sending waves of unimaginable agony radiating through his body with each strike. The soldiers weren't just securing him. They seemed invested in the violence, ensuring the nails were firmly embedded, prolonging the torment. Once he was affixed, The cross was hoisted upright and dropped into its designated hole. The jarring impact sent further shockwaves of pain through his body, while full weight pulling down on the nailed limbs created excruciating tension on his wrists and shoulders. Suspended in this manner, breathing itself became an agonizing struggle. Bridget's account aligns with medical understanding. The position compresses the chest muscles, requiring immense effort to draw each breath. To inhale, Jesus would have had to push against the nails of his feet and pull against those in his wrists, causing friction and renewed waves of pain throughout his body. Yet, even this desperate fight for air offered no respite from the verbal assaults. Passers-by continued to hurl insults, mock his claims, and challenge him to save himself if he truly was the Son of God. Blood continued to drip from his hands and feet onto the ground below. Despite this public display of degradation and agony, Bridget emphasizes that his suffering remained profoundly internal as well. The pain of rejection, the sorrow over humanity's blindness to the love motivating his sacrifice. If this reflection on the depth of Christ's sacrifice and the enduring faith of those who witness it resonates with you, supporting us with a like and subscribing to the channel helps us continue sharing these powerful accounts. Below the cross, providing a stark contrast to the mockery, stood the faithful few, his mother Mary, the disciple John, and several devoted women. Mary, enduring her own profound agony, remained steadfast, her presence a silent testament to unwavering love and trust in God's plan, even amidst the horror. What final words and actions would mark the culmination of this unparalleled sacrifice, according to St. Bridget's visions? After hours of unimaginable torment, hanging between heaven and earth, Jesus uttered his final testament. It is finished. According to St. Bridget's visions, this wasn't a cry of defeat, but a declaration of completion. The sacrifice, undertaken with full knowledge and deliberate love, was accomplished. Her account suggests a body so utterly ravaged by the accumulated tortures, from the pre-dawn beatings to the scourging, the thorns, the falls, the nailing, that the full reality would be almost impossible for us to gaze upon, let alone depict accurately, even in visceral films like Mel Gibson's A Passion of Christ. The visions imply that Gibson's powerful work, while attempting realism, could only hint at the depth of the physical and spiritual agony endured. Why endure such extremity? St. Bridget emphasizes repeatedly that the driving force was a love beyond human measure. Each wound, each insult, each moment of agony was consciously accepted, she conveyed, as a demonstration of God's limitless desire for reconciliation with humanity, a testament to forgiveness offered even before it was sought. Even knowing many would disregard or scorn this ultimate act of love, Jesus did not relent. This profound insight invites deep introspection. Do we value the sacrifice? Do we comprehend the magnitude of love willing to embrace absolute suffering for the sake of others, even the indifferent or hostile? St. Bridget's stark revelations challenge complacency, urging us to move beyond passive acknowledgement towards genuine appreciation and response. The Passion story, especially as detailed by Bridget, mirrors universal human experiences: betrayal, fear, cowardice, cruelty, but also unwavering loyalty, maternal love, compassion, and enduring faith. Seeing the divine Son endure the worst of human darkness and respond with forgiveness, even from the cross, offers a powerful lens through which to view our own struggles. It's an invitation to cultivate gratitude, to practice forgiveness in our own lives, however small the offense compared to crucifixion, and find strength knowing that even in profound suffering, love and purpose can prevail. This isn't about diminishing our pain, but finding perspective and hope in the ultimate example of love triumphing over agony. Ultimately, St. Bridget's visions, while harrowing, are presented not to induce fear, but to provoke awe and inspire transformation. They serve as a stark reminder of the cost of divine love and the seriousness of the redemption offered. To remain indifferent after contemplating such sacrifice seems almost impossible. The hope embedded in this terrifying ordeal is that if love itself was willing to endure the insufferable, then love truly is the strongest force in the universe, capable of overcoming any darkness. It's a call to live differently, conscious of the price paid, striving for kindness, justice, and compassion in our own spheres. As we hold on to the profound reality of Christ's sacrificial love, if you believe that Jesus is the King, let us know by commenting below. And your journey doesn't have to end here. Click the video now appearing on your screen for another powerful message we prepared for you.